Alright, what's up, guys? We're back here with another movie review, and today is going to be a start of a collection of movie reviews. Now, they're all movie reviews, but I wanted to start reviewing all of Stephen King's movies. And today we are starting with one I actually hadn't seen yet. This is one that I skipped over. Stephen King's A Good Marriage. Now, this has Robert De Niro in it, and he does all in all a pretty good job in this movie. Now, this movie has a lot of pacing issues, and it only has a 51 or 52% on Rotten Tomatoes. It has a 36 on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a 5.2 on IMDb and a 1.5 out of 4 stars for one of the critics I stole. The thing that this movie suffers most about is pacing. This movie feels like a bunch of ideas. Now, the story is there. There is a story there in this movie. It's present. But I feel like they managed to make a movie where it's just a bunch of the ideas they had on the drawing board just jumbled into one movie. And that's why this movie has so many pacing issues, because it just feels like there's so many ideas going on at once. And it really bogs the movie down. I gotta say, I wasn't really. Robert De Niro did a good performance in this movie, but this movie is just. It's not. I agree with most of the critics on this one. It's not that good. There's a lot of confusing choices in this movie. As I said, before I start reviewing it, there is a story present in this movie, but it just did not execute it well. So, this movie is about a woman. She's been married to this guy for 25 years, which is Robert De Niro, and they're old people. They got 3 children, and their daughter is getting married, and she finds out that her husband's a serial killer named Beatty, and that ensues more stuff. So let's talk about it. The movie starts off with the movie starts off with sort of a get together. And I guess Robert De Niro's character, and I don't know why his name isn't mentioned on the poster, because he doesn't make it all the way through the movie, spoiler. But I don't know why it didn't mention it. Now, before I continue this, I may or may not do the Stephen King miniseries along with reviewing the movies. I'll have to decide upon that. The 2 that I can guarantee for me doing, though, well, 3, is The Stand, the It miniseries, and of course, Tommy Knockers. Now, ones like Bag of Bones and Nightmares and Dreamscapes, I don't know yet. And Kingdom Hospital, I just don't know. And Big Driver, that's another one. But I just. Where to start with this movie? It starts off, it's at this get together, and we get introduced to the daughter, the 2 sons, and then the couple, which is Robert De Niro and his wife. And they're at this party, and he gets this award for being an accountant for 25 years. And they go home. There's a sex scene. And the next morning he leaves. The children leave because they're in their 20s, so they leave to go get on a plane, get ready for the marriage coming up. The daughter is. And Robert De Niro leaves, and she's at the house by herself. Well, at the beginning of this movie, at the party, there's this old guy. And he's always sitting in the background. And when Robert De Niro's leaving, he's sitting across the street watching him. This old guy, you won't get to find out what he's doing there till the end of the movie. So she goes back in the house, and that night she tries to turn on the TV or do something with the TV, but the batteries are dead in the remote. So she goes out to the garage to get some new batteries, and she stubs her toe on this box. So she pulls the box out and finds a bunch of her kids' old drawings in there. And then a panel falls out from behind the box, and she hears it. So she pulls the box out and finds out that a panel has been loosened. She pulls it out and finds this box that says Dad on it. And earlier in the movie, she saw a news report about a woman that had been murdered. And it was from a serial killer named Beatty. They found her body, and usually what Beatty does after he kills the victim, he usually mails their ID and social security card to the police along with a note. And she's starting to find these notes around the house. Pre-written notes. And she opens up this box, and what do you know? It's a express card, this woman's ID, and a social security card. And this freaks her out because her husband's Beatty, so she starts searching up on the internet about Beatty. And then her husband calls, and she's sounding upset, so this concerns Robert De Niro's character. So he comes home, and she's upstairs. She goes downstairs because she hears somebody opening the door, but she's freaking out because she knows that her husband's a killer now. But then somehow Robert De Niro snuck up the stairs, and he's sitting in the bedroom now where she was. And he knows about it. He looked at the search history, and the box in the garage was slightly moved off. So, then this is where when I say pacing, once they've had this conversation, she has to take some time to think about it. And when I say this movie has pacing issues, this is the part where the pacing issues ensue. It's hard to watch. This is a pretty bad. The pacing in this movie really takes it down a lot. It makes it very unenjoyable to watch. It's not. I understand there may be a few people that may like this movie, but I'm saying on this one, I didn't think this was a good movie, and I've heard some people tell me I should watch this. Oh man, that movie's so good. I've even had some people say it's underrated. This movie isn't underrated or good at all. It's just horribly executed. I mean, on so many levels. But this is the point in the movie where it definitely struggles. She's trying to contemplate what to do with Robert De Niro. And by the conclusion of the movie is just in shambles. It's nothing anymore by the end of the movie. They tried bringing it back up with a twist ending, but it just did not work. And there was actually one scene that was supposed to be serious, but I was laughing so hard of how bad it was acted out. So after skipping about 40 minutes of the movie here, this movie is an hour and 41 minutes. We're about the hour and 9-minute mark. Now, Robert De Niro's character in this movie has a weird obsession with coins, and he's trying to find this 1955 penny that's double printed. And it's very rare, and it's worth like $9,000. He's been looking for it for 25 years. Everything is 25 years in this movie. Well, he was looking for it since he was 14. I guess that wasn't. But he finds this penny, and he comes up to his wife, and he's so excited. He decides to take her out for dinner, and she gets him hella drunk. And everything seems to be going fine. She seems to be accepting it. He said he wouldn't kill anymore. Everything's going fine. So they want to have sex. He wants to have sex again. So she makes him get her like an alcohol drink or something. So he runs up the stairs, and he's all drunk. And she comes out of nowhere and pushes him off the side of the steps, hits his head on the bottom step, and then she gets this bag from the kitchen and shoves it in his mouth until he chokes to death. She has just murdered Robert De Niro because he was a killer. So she perfectly cleans up the crime scene and makes it look like he fell. And so the next scene is and again this old guy is standing in the background. The next scene is them at the funeral. And earlier in the movie, at the beginning, he gave his wife a present that was a pair of Pisces earrings, and they belonged to the victim that he killed. So she dropped it on top of his coffin. Now, the last 20 minutes of this movie, I wasn't quite sure if it was even a movie anymore. It just, after Robert De Niro's character died, the movie just was all over the place and it did not make sense. She's at the funeral, she goes home, and the old guy shows up at her doorstep, and he's used to be a detective, and he's like in his 70s or something, and he's got cancer, but he's still smoking. So he shows up at the door, and she knows he's been studying the killer, Beatty. And he thinks, since her name is Darcy, I forgot the woman's name is Darcy, the wife, and Robert De Niro's character's name is Bob. He thinks BD means Bob and Darcy. But she then explains to him that Bob and Darcy, well, at first she doesn't admit to him. So she invites him in her house, and then he puts this theory on top of her, and she completely denies it. So he's like, I got my ways. And I'm like, oh shit, there's still 20 minutes left of this movie. Could it be setting up for a sequel? Could this movie actually be trying to be something? I mean, this guy could actually be a threatening character to this woman. No, he goes back out to his car and he coughs and passes out dead on the dash wheel. I was in fucking tears. I'm like, oh my god, are they actually going to try to make this guy a threatening force to this woman? Nope. He passes out on the dashboard of his car and gets taken to the hospital. Oh shit. That was so stupid. I don't know how to explain that scene. It killed me. I had to pause the movie for a second because I'm just like, wow. That's phenomenal. It may not seem funny to some of you, but I found that hilarious. It was great. But then we get to the final scene of the movie, and this is where they tried to bring it back up, but the movie was already too far destroyed, so it really didn't work. So she goes to the guy's hospital room, and she acts like she's going to kill him, and she doesn't. And she explains to him that it was actually BD means Bob and his childhood friend's name that started with a D. So she leaves and has a happy life. And the movie ends with her eating some Tootsie Rolls looking at a coin magazine. What would I rate a good marriage? I'm going to give it a D. I'm going to give this one a D. So the way that I rate it is, and I'm combining guilty pleasure and so bad it's good, I'm just going to call it the guilty pleasure category, because that seems a little bit out there. So I rate it guilty pleasure, which is just movies that are bad, but I enjoy them, like Sharknado. A plus, which is the best of the best. A, which is really good, but not enough to be an A plus. B, which is still really good. C, which is meh. D, which is the one that I'm giving this movie, is bad. This movie's bad. And then F, which is fucking terrible. Now, I put the only one to get an F so far is Breakdown Lane. And the only one to get an A plus so far is Deathgasm, because I love metal and I love violence. And that movie's just phenomenal. Don't you piss on it. I swear to God, I will burn your house down. That movie's phenomenal. I don't want to hear anybody say anything else about it. Deathgasm is fucking awesome. Alright, yeah, this movie's getting a D for bad. This movie is bad. It's not fucking terrible. There are some good choices in it, but it's still bad. So, that was my review of Stephen King's A Good Marriage, and I will continue on this series of reviewing Stephen King's movies. Stephen King's A Good Marriage. 2014, 5.2 on IMDb, hour and 41 minutes. Remember to leave a comment, like, and subscribe.